Welcome to Red Ice Creations Radio, my friends. This is Henrik Palmgren. I'm glad you're here today. We have an interesting program ahead of us. Wayne Herschel from thehiddenrecords.com is with us. And if you've been with us for a while, you know that Wayne was on this program back in November, I think, of last year, if I remember correctly. And we talked about his fascinating book called The Hidden Records, about human origins and the connection to the stars and where we might be from. And today we're going to kind of follow up on that program and go off on a very interesting tangent and talk about the Forbidden Star Map, or the Hiram Abiff Star Map. And this is brand new stuff. Wayne published an article back in July, I think, this year, and this is, you know, fascinating stuff that dives into everything from the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, to the blazing star of Ra, and the absolutely fascinating connection to the free Masonic tracing board. There's a lot of pictures to look at today, and I'm certainly going to have these linked up from the info page so people can follow along on the article that Wayne has published or put up on his website, thehiddenrecords.com. Also, another site you need to take a look at is keyofsolomon.net, and if there's time, we're going to probably dive into that also and talk about that. So again, there's much to talk about today, and so let's bring on our guest and get things going here. Hi, Wayne. Welcome back to Red Ice Creations Radio.
Great to be back. Thanks, Fredrik.
Excellent. It's great to have you here. Thank you again for coming on. And wow, you know, I've been going through the material here, and there's much fascinating to talk about. And just let me read a few lines here from your article here about the Forbidden Star Map. Over the past few years, Freemasons have come from all over the world, quite conspicuously, one might add, to attend Wayne's Pyramid Star Map talks. Some very interesting comments were made in private conversation that transpired after the talks. A number of people told Wayne that they had always known that the stars his research focused on are extremely important. They also admitted that they had never realized exactly why they were so important until now, especially since it would seem that virtually all of the ancient civilizations venerated these particular stars in some sort of Genesis theme. They commented that their once secret star depiction, which they referred to as theirs, the first degree tracing board of the Key of Hiram, had recently become a public available historical document. And we're going to talk about that here today, and that's an interesting point there, Wayne. And the idea, of course, is that we're going to talk about this tracing board from the Hiram Key. But tell us, how did you stumble upon this document, or this image, I should say?
I'd have to credit Dan Brown for that. During my research, just before publishing my book a couple of years ago, it was at a time the Da Vinci Code was hardly known, but my brother had the book and said to me, you should have a look at some of this material. Mm-hmm. It speaks of human encoding into ancient places. The mention at the time wasn't really including the Solomon Key or anything like that, but it was basically that there was some kind of Freemason secret tying in with these Da Vinci, Vitruvian Man pictures, etc., etc. And I'd already had worked on some sort of part of the interpretation of the Vitruvian Man, mm-hmm. and started looking into some of the Freemason materials a couple of years ago, but there wasn't that much available. But I was very fortunate to have an old book by a Freemason called The Arcana of Freemasonry. Mm-hmm. And on the cover, he has this picture of what to me instantly looked like a star map. It had a star with a beam of light coming down from it, like you see in a lot of the Bethlehem star kind of depictions. And of course, a grouping of a cluster of 7 stars up to the top right-hand part of it. And realizing that this is kind of very sensitive material. You don't just go writing about Freemasonry 3 or 4 years ago. You put it aside and take it with a pinch of salt and just wait for somebody else to write about it. Nobody did. So here I am quite a few years later now. Things have changed really dramatically, probably because of Dan Brown predominantly. There's hundreds of books now of authors researching Freemasonry and writing about it, some respectfully and some not. I'm quite sort of grateful that I've been treated well by fellow Freemasons that have come to my talks and said that, you show respect and we'll treat you accordingly. And if I speak poorly of them, then don't expect to be aided in my project research or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them told me that the Bradford University in the United Kingdom has exposed their original most valuable tracing board, the first-degree tracing board. And it's open topic. Go ahead, research it. It looks like your material. And I already told him I realized it was similar.
Mm-hmm.
But it's time now to let people know what it might mean, which is a great thing. I mean, it's got a positive meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing to be afraid of or something we shouldn't really touch. It's got a really positive outcome, something to do with human origins.
Sounds wonderful. Let's talk about the tracing board. I hope that people are, have clicked on the links and are on the website right now, so they can see the images, in front of them. But let's go through the Masonic tracing board first, and talk a little bit about what we see there.
Yeah, the amazing thing about it is you've got it's like a triangulation effect in the sky. I'm just going to quickly open the image so I don't mislead anybody. The top left-hand side, it looks like a normal sun. The top right-hand side almost looks like a moon depiction with stars around it, because there are stars, so you expect, well, it can't be the sun and stars, it must be the moon. And of course, in ancient civilizations, the sun and the moon seem to play an important part. And that is a general sort of interpretation by many Freemasons, that it is this sort of recognition of the importance of the sun and the moon and 7 stars. Mm. But the one at the bottom part that has 7 points of light on it in a circle and a ladder coming down from it, that is referred to as the blazing star. And it's quite amazing that you see a hand coming out of it holding what represents, I think, the Holy Grail. So this is a Christ-related star story. Mm-hmm. So that's where it begins. Now, you have the star pattern, and people that have seen my research will go straight to the Mars star map and compare it, and that's probably the most detailed star map that I've come across, which shows 2 important stars near the Pleiades, if these are the Pleiades, for example, and just sort of do an overlay, and you'll see they're in the general sort of positions. But this third one, the one that's sitting with the Pleiades, I realized it wasn't the moon. It's a third sun-like star. So my book has an extra. There's 3 sun-like stars in contention here. All 3 of them are measurable astronomically. They've got star codings, they're HD references, Hubble telescope references. Mm-hmm. They are nearby sun-like stars, all 3 of them, which I think is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we have this pattern in the sky. And there's 3 pillars on the ground. And the 3 pillars on the ground, I was completely baffled at first. Why are they showing them? Some have got more carving. If you look at the tops of the pillars, one in the front has got almost no carving on the top. Mm-hmm. Then the middle one has a little bit more, and then the one nearest the ladder has a lot of carving on it. And then, of course, the famous checkered pattern floor.
Yeah.
So I basically tinkered with it for quite a while, and the university site has a lot of text on the ritual, and I get very put off when I read in the actual ritual, because it's very, I wouldn't say off-putting from the sense of destructive. It's more, it's just, to me, it doesn't seem to be valid research. But then I did go through it, and it speaks of the pillars as from the Genesis text of Jacob, where Jacob put a pillar on the ground to mark the place where this ladder came down from the heavens. So this pillar interpretation is Jacob's ladder. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is there anything you want to mention at this point?
Yeah, tons of stuff. Too much, almost. There's of course the timeline, and we'll get into that. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's see here, but how did you kind of so you took the tracing board and compared it with the star map that you have in your book, The Hidden Records? Is that right?
Yeah, I did. That's right. It actually showed that extra third sun-like star, and I went back to the Mars star map, and there is actually an anomaly that correlates with this extra sun. It looks almost like the Mars face. It's an oval anomaly. I went back to the Stonehenge interpretation, and there's a huge long barrow that's next to the area that represents the Pleiades, the same as there. And then, of course, a whole new story comes into contention now. The cradle of civilization, the ruins of Babylon, have 3 large ziggurats that Saddam Hussein rebuilt in the area around the original lost ruins of Babylon. And it's quite amazing now that even that has a pattern match.
That's amazing, and that's not the only one. There is one in Tikal, I think, and one in England, I guess, and even at Sidonia, of course.
Yeah, the most amazing one is, of course, Sardonia, because that was a large anomaly that I'd actually clipped off the picture. You'll see in my pictures of Sardonia, I actually cut the picture on that edge there, because at the time, I didn't want to add in that third star, and I didn't want to write about Freemason secrets. I just thought that would be guaranteeing myself problems. Why involve it when I don't really need to? Mm-hmm. But, the time has come. People want to see the full meaning of a better part of the story, and that's how this links with the Solomon key. That's the exciting part.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit before we began here the recording, and just the interesting idea that you've been approached by Freemasons who doesn't seem to they themselves have the full meaning of the symbols or the images that they have access to.
It seems like, I really thought that they would, but when you go back and see what is now their records that they've made open to the public, it's very symbolic of important heavenly meaning, importance as far as the biblical reference to the Jacob story, as far as angelic references, the Egyptian great secrets are brought in as well. It's quite a big subject that I couldn't really comment officially on, but what I did see is the star pattern, which it seems nobody has recognized, and that I'm sure if anybody knew about it, they would probably have printed it or written something on it, or been very quick to tell me there's a copyright on it or anything. But I've been very fortunate to write the story and copyright the book with a star pattern, and didn't know anything originally about how big the story would be, but it's just going bigger and bigger. And I've been treated well by Freemasons that have come ahead and said, this is important, to get out there and speak well of it, and just show a bit of respect.
Yeah, let's see here. So, let's begin to talk a little bit about the star to the left, and also the pillar that is in the foreground of the image. And I guess that if we are to put a timeline on here, we end up at 200,000 years ago as the kind of the human origins, I guess.
Yeah, it took me a while to work out the timeline. If you look at the floor, all those little checkered patterns seem to be measuring very neatly, because remember, geometry is very important to the Masonic people. That has importance in all angles and sizes and distances. Everything has meaning mathematically. So notice the pillars are carefully placed along this sort of perspective going to the horizon. And there's three pillars, and if you look, obviously there's three round orbs, which I started calling orbs in the beginning, but they're three sun-like stars, three pillars. So each pillar represents the star that's in line with it. For example, the pillar on the left is in line with the one on the full left above it. The pillar on the right is obviously the one on the right. And the one that's kind of at the horizon is the closest to the middle one. That's the most ornate one. And I was measuring the horizon distance to that pillar is pretty much 2 blocks. And I was guessing if my theory is, 17,000 years according to the movement of the stars fitting perfectly in all the star maps, if my 17,000-year period is right for this blazing star, the middle one, then let's use one square equals 20,000 years. 10,000 years. 20,000 years, and keep adding it on and just see how far we go back. And to the middle pillar, it's about 100,000, and to the one in the foreground, it's 200,000, and that fits pretty neatly with fossil records of modern Homo sapiens fossil records.
So what we're talking about here is that in the tracing board there is a decoded message